have one last little thing to do, or a couple little things to do. And we've been working together in broadband for a number of years. This is the first year we've decided to do some awards to recognize the leadership that a number of people in this sector are providing. And so I'm excited to invite Maggie Drummond-Ball from the Maine Connectivity Authority up to do our first award.
Can I use that mic?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe.
These are beautiful. Nice job, team. All right, I am so excited to be able to present our first award. I started doing work on broadband and digital equity just a few years ago, and I've learned two things so far. One, like most things worth doing, it's really hard work, especially at the community and local level, where it's all about talking to your neighbors and convincing everybody that this is important and not letting people get discouraged. And the second thing is that it's personal. We're not techies. I know there's a few Vetro people in here and some others who maybe are techies, but most of us are doing this because there's some positive, amazing impact that happens because we get connected, whether that's education, social connection, workforce opportunities, whatever it is. And no one illustrates for me these two things that I've learned more than our emerging broadband leader today, Nakia Dana, who I know is trying to leave, and so we're not gonna let her leave. That's why we're gonna present this as quickly as possible. And I would just argue that it's not the Emerging Broadband Leader Award because she has already emerged. You don't have to come all the way down and stand here. I'm going to make you come down, but I meant you didn't have to stand here. So Nakia, for those of you who haven't met her, is a member of the Passamaquoddy Nation at Indian Township. And during the pandemic, she looked around at her community and thought all of these kids are disconnected from school and from their social interactions. And she just said to herself, like so many people do at the local level, this is not acceptable. It was personal to her. And every conversation that I've had with Nakia, she has expressed some sense of not knowing what she's doing. And the funny thing is that I always say back to her, I don't know the answer either. I'm not sure either about that. So we're all in this together, but the thing that I've learned about Nakia is that she just keeps moving forward, and that perseverance is serving her community so well. So what are the results? I still remember the phone call that I had with Nakia where she said, she didn't exactly give a big sigh, but she said, I guess I have to call Pioneer. And so many wonderful things happened after that, that there is now, because of the faith that Chief Nicholas and Vice Chief Saco Basin have in Nakia's leadership, there is now a pioneer fiber build happening in the community. They've joined the Down East Broadband Utility. They've done so much work to apply for a digital equity planning grant on behalf of the tribe. And Nakia is bringing her voice to our digital equity task force and all of her learned experience to that work at the state level. She's thinking about workforce. She's working with Four Directions and the National Digital Equity Center to bring digital navigators into her community. And I just think that she embodies what it looks like when one person decides it's really important. I'm going to give you the most beautiful one.
Thank you, Maggie. All right, so the next award.
Yeah, it's David Hall.
Hill.
Hill?
Hill, H-I-L.
I guess I need a better prescription. David Hill from town of Sheboygan, Iowa.
You can use the microphone up here.
Yep.
Go.
That was a very tough act to follow. My name's David Hill. I'm from Sheboygan Island, and I call this the long, strange journey from dial-up to fiber. Beverly Johnson and I formed Sheboygan.net 16 years ago to provide internet broadband to Sheboygan Island and its 150 year-round residents and 300 seasonal residents. making old dial-up modems obsolete. The service was deemed by Tilson Technologies to be, quote, by most definitions, Maine's first municipal broadband network. This came about with the support of the Connect Maine Authority, mainly Wired, GWI, local investors, and the assistance of Axiom Technologies and Mark Willett. When Shebig.net was denied access to the newly federally funded fiber optic cable serving the island, Axiom stepped up to assume ownership of the island network in February of 2016. Since that time, Axiom has gained access to the new cable and provided reliable, affordable, locally serviced DSL internet service to over 200 island households, businesses, and nonprofits. Last year, the town of Shebig Island appointed a broadband committee on which I serve, and from the 3 responses to our RFP, selected Axiom to leave DSL behind and provide island-wide fiber optic high-speed broadband internet service to the island. With Axiom's assistance led by Mark Willett, last April, the Connect Maine Authority awarded a broadband infrastructure grant to the town of Shebig in the amount of $800,000, our application ranking first among the grant applicants. Through a creative agreement with Axiom, the town's portion of the $1.7 million project, while funded by the town, will have no impact on the Shebig Island residents' tax rate, as Axiom, through subscriber revenues, will fund the debt service. I have always found Mark puts public interests ahead of corporate profits, but he does keep his eye on the bottom line, no doubt about that. The project is proceeding, and Mark continues to guide us through the sometimes baffling world of bank funding, pole make-ready, licensing, and all of the anomalies we might see when it comes to locations. But there's still a lot to do. But by this time next year, earlier we hope, Shebig Island will have a world-class broadband network in place, enabling its citizens to enjoy the benefits of all the internet has to offer at speeds many can only hope for, and at an affordable price. While many have contributed to this effort, we have Mark Willett to thank for his expertise, creativity, leadership, perseverance, and perhaps most of all, patience in making our dream, along with several other Maine towns, a reality. And thank you, Mark. And does anybody recognize?
Oh my God, I love that.
It's a gold-plated modem.
Oh, give me a hug, Brad.
You got it.
Thanks
You
for
got it.
everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. So our last award goes to somebody who couldn't be with us today, Peggy Schaefer. She retired this summer as the chair of the executive director of the Connect Maine Authority. She is in Spain, or she is actually off the coast of Spain on a boat. It's a rough life being retired. I think she would have loved to have been here today, and the work that we are all doing together really comes in large part from the work that Peggy's done over the last, 7, 8 years on broadband. I first met Peggy working in the broadband context. In 2016, we were working on the Broadband Coalition. The Broadband Coalition has been alluded to a couple of times today, started out as a listserv and was really held together by the force of will of Peggy wanting to do good things in the broadband world. That listserv, the number of members on that listserv, were fewer than the number of people attending this conference today. So that's a sign of how much the sector has grown since 2016, how many new people are in the room. A lot of that is Peggy, a lot of that is a whole bunch of other people in the room too. I remember one day we sat down and said, this Broadband Coalition is kind of a thing. We should try to be a little bit more formal about it. We're all kind of doing it off the side of our desks at work. Let's get a little bit of money and see what we can do. We submitted a proposal to Maine Community Foundation and Maggie Drummond Ball, And she took a flyer on us. She said, yes, that sounds good. You need to redo your proposal because it is so inadequate for funding. It really highlights why you need this money to get the capacity to become an organization. And with that capacity, the coalition brought on Andrew Butcher to help lead us through the development of the work. In a lot of that, Peggy was right there, working in the Secretary of State's office, leading the coalition, really making sure that everybody in Augusta knew just how important broadband was to Maine people, to the businesses, to everybody out there who didn't have broadband. And part of her vision for the coalition was that the users, the internet, the people who rely on having a good internet connection are a really strong and powerful voice. They're a really strong and powerful voice in Augusta, and when we all come together and say broadband is important, broadband is absolutely critical to the future of our state, we can do amazing things. And so that's the leadership that Peggy's brought to the broadband space in Maine. It's been incredible. She was the executive director of Connect Maine for, I think, 3 and a bit years through a pretty tumultuous time through the pandemic. Connect Maine did a whole bunch of things in there, really built a strong foundation for the Maine Connectivity Authority, got to the point where the NTIA said, here's $30 million to go connect 12,000 households in a bunch of parts of the state that have been working really hard. Charlie Woodworth from Franklin County has a couple of regions there that are getting connections. They're getting turned on today because of that work. All of that goes back to the work that Peggy has done. And so I've been incredibly lucky to be working with Peggy very closely for the last 5 years, however long it's been, on this issue, and it's been an incredible experience. And so she would be very happy and very excited to be here, to see you all, to see the energy in the room, and really see the forward momentum that is happening in the state. And so if you see her when she gets back from her retirement, I'm sure she will still be around. Please congratulate her. Please know that a lot of the work that we're doing today collectively as a state rests on work that Peggy started. So she's the other recipient.
And we'll make sure to get her gold-plated modem. We do actually have one more award, which will be announced by Andrew Butcher.
Thank you, Miles. Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to, and since I don't believe there's any representation in the room, any representatives from Senator King's office here with us right now? I don't think present. I know they were yesterday, so it is my pleasure to announce the award for Senator King, given his longstanding leadership in this space. I think it's fair to say that Senator King helped put Maine very literally on the map as it pertains to bridging the digital divide. Many of you probably recall his efforts in prioritizing the investment of devices and device lending for Maine students, which captured, I think, digital equity probably before, the concept of digital equity before digital equity was a thing that was a part of our common lexicon for most people, I'm sure. And so I think it's a tremendous time and very appropriate for the Broadband Coalition to be making this award to Senator King, especially given his leadership and his team's leadership in crafting both the Digital Equity Act and the BEAD program as a part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. So this funding that we're talking about, the funding that is now helping us plan and do the work, is very much a result of Senator King's vision and commitment to this work moving forward in an equitable way. I will also say that one of the highlights for me in the last year has been the opportunity to work with Senator King and his staff, and had the opportunity to visit DC with Peggy on a trip to a state broadband leaders network. Many states all bring together their state offices to share best practices and learn. And Peggy and I were, it was a bit of a baton passing moment, and Peggy and I were at the airport getting ready to board a flight to DC, and she turned around, she was like, oh, look, there's Angus. And he was walking around holding a handmade bird feeder, which for those of you that know Senator King probably may be totally on brand. And so as he was standing there alone with his bird feeder waiting to board the flight, Peggy shuffled up and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he was like, "Oh, hey." And they started talking shop, and we had just had a conversation as well. And so it was just really wonderful to sort of talk shop in the airport casually with such a luminary of digital equity and broadband leadership. And as we were talking broadband this, broadband that, a woman standing near us shuffled over and was like, "Excuse me, are you all in the band?" And without hesitation, Senator King said, "Yes, we are, the broadband." So, Senator King, I'm sure you will be watching when this is posted or streamed available online. Thank you so much for all that you've done and continue to do.
And we actually have a short message from the senator, which we'll play now.
Okay, look, I'm delighted to be getting this award, but you're the people that should be getting this award. The real champions of broadband right now in Maine are the people who are making it happen on the ground, through the wires, through the air, and doing so much for the people of our state. I think broadband is one of the most important pieces of infrastructure for the 21st century. I think it is the most important piece of infrastructure for the 21st century, and we're at an important moment right now is where we're talking about the implementation of the historic support for broadband that came out of the Congress and the American Rescue Plan, and then an even much bigger sum of money in the infrastructure bill, and also the state has anteed in. This is a moment when we can really change the future of Maine, and you're on the front lines of doing so. We have to figure out how to do it most cost effectively, how to deal with affordability as well as access. And that's why it's so important that you're coming together. So look, I'm delighted to be getting this award, but as I say, really it should be going to the people in this room. And I'll end with this thought. What you're doing by meeting together today is so important in getting this work done, because what you're doing is sharing ideas, learning from each other, and gaining access to the newest technologies, the newest ideas for deployment, and the newest ideas for affordability. Abraham Lincoln was once asked what he would do if he was given an hour to split a cord of wood. His answer was, "I'd spend the first 15 minutes sharpening my axe." And that's what you're doing today, sharpening your axe of thinking and of approaching and implementing this historic opportunity. So, congratulations to you all. Thank you from me for the award. I'm humbled by it, but I'm also delighted by the opportunity that the broadband expansion has given to Maine. Let's make it real. Congratulations again, and thanks again.
And like you, I was thinking, man, that gold modem is going to look so good next to that bust of Abraham Lincoln on his desk. Okay, that's the end. Thank you, everybody. Wait. It's kind of the end. It's like, you can get your things, but I do want to say first, thanks to the board of the Maine Broadband Coalition, Nick, Karem, you're still here somewhere, I think, Maureen in particular, who took it upon themselves to run a bunch of sessions. I want to thank the Maine Connectivity Authority and all of the staff here who were also running a lot of sessions and content. I want to thank our sponsors. I wrote it down this time. MCA, GWI, GoNetspeed, LCI Fiber, AARP, Axiom, Consolidated Communications, Tilton, and Vetro FiberMap, and Norway and Machias Savings Banks. Also, I want to thank our organizers, Clara and Emily, I can see you back there. I also want to thank Nick and Bria, who could not be here today, Krista, if she's here, Krista Thorpe. These are the folks who have been to these conferences before, actually knew it was supposed to happen. Thank you so much. It would have been nothing without you. And especially want to thank Joe, who did more work than any of us on this particular conference, and is the only other employee of the Broadband Coalition. So my colleague Joe, who was here yesterday on his birthday and got out of us singing happy birthday to him, which I am not going to make you do. So thank you, everybody. There are tea and coffee back in the summit room if you need it, but otherwise, thank you very much. Drive safe.